Whew. Okay. I don't know. I don't know if this is working or not, guys. I don't know. There might be a huge lag. If you're in the room, can you like comment? Also, I'm sick. I'm getting over a sickness. I'm trying. My voice might be a little weird, so apologies. And hopefully I won't cough a lot. I'm gonna give it a minute because I know I got started like 10 minutes late. See, get myself situated and make sure that this is working. I think it's working. I'm always living on the edge with Mercury retrograde, you guys, like trying a new kind of advanced tech setup. Mercury retrograde. Bold choice. A very bold choice, but we're doing it. Okay, so I would really love to see. Okay, what does that do for you? Does that, nothing? Okay. You can hear me. Okay, good, good. Hi, guys. Thank you so much, April. Yeah, I gotta do what I can to make myself feel a little more presentable. Because I feel like, ugh, I'm feeling it. How are you guys doing? I'm just gonna finish getting set up for like 30 seconds or so, and then we'll get started. I don't know if I'm lagging or not with my tech setup here, so I guess we'll find out. And I have this up 2 places, so I'm gonna close that and hope I don't fuck anything up. Oh Lord. All right. Yes, I do have an aura ring. And I do like it. You know why? Because so Mercury retrograde story before we begin. So Mercury stationed retrograde about 1 a.m. Central Time on Thursday. And I woke up around that time, and I swear to God, I felt sickness enter my body. Like I felt like a little thing in my throat, and I was like, okay, well, I thought for a second, maybe I should get up and take some honey because, you know, that helps your throat. But then I was like, I'm going to just wait for tomorrow and hope it goes away. And then I woke up on Thursday and didn't feel great. And the longer the day went on, the more it bothered me. And by the time I woke up Friday, I did not feel well enough to go to school. So I took a sick day. And what I appreciate about the aura is it reflected back to me. Yeah, you actually are showing major signs of your body being under duress right now. Like your heart rate is elevated, your breathing pattern is not normal, your body temperature is elevated, which I knew I didn't feel good, but as somebody who often will like push through, I was like, you know what? I really appreciate seeing the cold hard facts that I in fact am not well right now. No way, Kyle. Oh my God. Yeah, I've never had anything like that happen, but you know, Mercury is retrograding in my 6th house. So I was like, well, how do you like that for Mercury stationing retrograde in your 6th house of sickness? That's some bullshit. Okay, well, I don't know if I do think there's a lag. So I'm looking at the chat. I'm going to get started. Please feel free to keep, you know, chatting away in the chat. I wish you could see my tech. This is my phone, this is my computer, and this is my shared screen. So I'm like, it may seem a little crazy today, but we're giving it a shot. We're just having fun, right? Oh, yes, same, Kyle. Well, you know what? I've gotten a lot better at calling off since having Vinny, since having my baby. I've gotten way better at calling off work because I just know that sometimes I'm at my wit's end and I need a day. But it is hard, it's hard to admit to ourselves sometimes. So, okay, I'm going to start, and yes, feel free to keep chatting. So welcome back, everybody. This is the March 2026 astrology forecast, the cosmic update, and I'm really excited to share it with you. If you don't know me, I'm Dana Solara. I'm an astrologer, I'm a spiritual coach, and I really believe that astrology is best used as a spiritual compass, not so much as like a fortune telling or predicting tool. Although, look, ultimately we are going to be doing some prediction work today, but we're not so much focused on white knuckling what's coming. We're trying to get really intentional with this forecast. So we're using this information not to control an outcome, but to be really present with what's happening here and now, what has already happened, and moving intentionally into the month of March with what will or could happen. Because I am not, I can't tell you exactly what's going to happen, but I can tell you what the archetypes are doing. And that's my goal for us today. I want to start first with a recap of February, because February was a lot. It was the most pivotal month of 2026, I would argue, from an astrological point of view. And the thing is, we're still in the mix of what happened in February. So the big news of February, there's a lot to talk about. Saturn made its way into Aries. This is the sign of Saturn's fall. I've talked a lot about this. I think I talked a lot about this in February, on the February forecast. And then I actually published a separate video that I found in my archives about Saturn-Neptune together, where I talked a little bit about the dynamic. And I published what I felt was like a pretty good carousel on Instagram about this. I'll say briefly, when a planet is in fall, it's in a zodiac sign that is, hostile. It's the energy of that zodiac sign is a real challenge for the planet, and Saturn is the lord of darkness, death, limits, decay, and Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. It's where life and spring begins. So it's hard for Saturn, and we get this paradox of like death and life with this transit. The old way kind of crumbling to make way for something new. The image that always comes to my mind first when I think of this is a vampire melting in the daylight. And it's been so fucking crazy. I'm not going to just, tell you all about my life here in this forecast, but I will just offer really quickly, like, I've already seen this show up in such a dramatic way. My mom's brother is on hospice, and my mom actually had to go drive to Texas from St. Louis to get him and bring him back, and now she's caring for him while he's, on his deathbed. And my mom is an Aquarius, and Pisces is her third house of siblings, and we're getting ready. Yeah, obviously we have a Mercury Retrograde in Pisces right now. We also are getting ready to have another eclipse in Pisces, and we had an eclipse in Aquarius. So that is the kind of thing that I just think that example, I share it with you because I think it kind of poignantly demonstrates how this can show up, if not really dramatically demonstrates how this can show up. Not everyone is going to be dealing with literal death, but there is going to be a lot of endings with this transit. And then we also had Saturn and Neptune conjunct in Aries. This only happens once every 36 years or so. So this is a major deal. I've shared before that I was born in 1989 when this transit was exact in Capricorn. So I actually have this natally. And again, I won't go too deep here because I have that other video and the February forecast that digs really deep into it. So check those out. As I mentioned, we started eclipse season. That was a big deal. We get 2 rounds of eclipses for total every year. So that's not super rare. Where they are only happens, once every 18 years or 9 years if you're not counting the position of the nodes. So we're moving out of our Pisces Virgo eclipses and into our Aquarius Leo eclipses this year. Later on in the year, the nodes will move into the Leo Aquarius axis. But for now, we had that Aquarius axis that was ruled by Saturn in fall. And I think maybe if you looked back at the end of February, like I would say the last 15 days, but definitely like the last 10 days for sure, you would see some pretty big shit popping off for yourself, probably, or definitely in the collective, and specifically in the area of life that Aquarius indicates for you, as well as Aries. And then we had a Mercury retrograde. Mercury station retrograde in Pisces, the sign of its detriment and fall. So, guys, it's just a little messy. It's a little messy right now. There's some challenges. And really, this could be showing up as just overwhelm, just sheer overwhelm. Like, there's a lot to do. There's a lot that's kind of changing. Like, the earth is shifting beneath our feet a little bit. And so we're kind of moving out of, I guess, like a moment of a wrecking ball. And I would call February like an astrological wrecking ball. But March is what we do with it. It's like how we rebuild the rubble. Not immediately. We're still in it we're in the kind of primordial goo moment, if you will, like that. We're in the chrysalis. We're kind of falling apart within it. We're transforming still. But by the end of the month, really by the equinox, we are moving pretty quickly into what happens next and how we want to rebuild. So I want to preface what we're going to say about this month with the rubble is not the end, it's the beginning. And the big question of March is, now that the old thing or things are gone, who are you? And what do you want to build? Okay, so that's where we're going with the astrology of March. Now, as far as how to use this forecast and make it really personalized for you, I want to offer this really quick. You want to know what your rising sign is. Okay, so your rising sign tells you which zodiac signs correspond to which houses. And knowing the houses is really important for making any astrological forecast specific to you, because the houses tell us the material area of life where the energies, the archetypal energies of the planets and zodiac signs are being activated for you. So in order to get your birth chart, you need your birth date, your birth time, and where you were born. If you do not know your birth time, there is a thing called rectification. It's more for me, like, I can't really get into that right now, but if you have questions about that, let me know and I can direct you to some resources. So throughout the episode, I'll just reference, like, look to this, like the house that this zodiac sign occupies in your chart, and that should give you a better clue of the area of life that energy is going to show up for you. Cool? Okay, so I've got this kind of broken down into a narrative, like a 3-part narrative for the month. The first 10 days, the middle 10 days, and the final 10 days. So I'm going to go ahead and set up my screen so that things look normal. Or not normal, but you can see what I'm gonna show you. So stand by here. Let's see. I think I'm gonna show you my Notion calendar first. When we're talking about, not a singular transit, I kind of prefer to look at a setup like this. Let me arrange my life. Hold on. Okay, all right. And then let's, and I'll just make myself smaller. I don't need to be that big. There we go. Wait, but I can. Thanks for bearing with me, guys. Move up. Hey, there we go. And then that way I can make this. Can I make it like full? I want to make it. Is that a little better? Kind of, but not really. Scale filtering. Once again, why I tried this during Mercury retrograde, I don't know. Real risk taker here. Can you see? Okay. I think you can see it because I'm pretty sure there's a lag, but I can see myself kind of playing with it. So I think you can see my screen. I'm going to give it just a second to be double sure though while I'm playing with it. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's get into it. So, March. The first part of March, the 1st through the 9th, sorry, now we're ready. I'm calling, still in the aftermath. We're still feeling the aftermath of February. And we're really still in the mix of those major moments that I mentioned at the top of the video. So we'll start with March 3rd. We have the full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo. We're going to look at this on the actual astrology software here in a moment. Mars enters Pisces the day before. That's, something we get every year, but it is adding a little bit of fire. There's a Pisces stellium by the time we have this full moon eclipse in Virgo, and Mars is included in that. So it's just adding a little spicy energy to this. And this eclipse is ruled by Mercury in detriment in fall and retrograde. It's as messy as it can get, guys, but that doesn't mean we need to be afraid. Again, we're going to look at this at a little bit more of a granular level in a second, but this is the second of our 2 eclipses for this eclipse season here at the beginning of 2026. We have something really beautiful on Thursday, Sun trine Jupiter. Again, we get that pretty regularly, but not with an exalted Jupiter in Capricorn, or not Capricorn, Cancer. So this feels like a lot of help. It feels like somebody really, I see you. Like I feel, when I think about that energy, I feel like someone has really seen my intentionality, like someone understanding me on a deep level. And something is made easier always with trines and always with Jupiter. Trines are of the nature of Jupiter. So there's something about this that suggests an ease in self-expression and being understood. I know we're not talking about Mercury, but the sun being indicative of the spirit. It feels like on a personal level, this could be really helpful for just being seen and heard on an emotional level. Okay, then Venus enters Aries, and she's going to go from being exalted in Pisces to being in detriment. And, people I love have Venus in Aries. My sister, my son, it's got its strengths. I'm always talking about how planets in detriment and fall are wildly misunderstood because they're actually, they have gifts just like any other placement. The gift of Venus in Aries is a boldness and a fierce ability to advocate for yourself, which I love. I think we could all use a little bit more of that. But Venus likes to connect. Venus is very 2 of Cups. It's hard to, collaborate and kind of like make a deal and shake hands when you're kind of more so looking out for yourself. So it can be a little tricky. It's bold and direct and unapologetic, but it can be a little impulsive, and it can be like firing off at the cuff, if that's even the right expression. We do also have the Mercury Cazimi on Saturday, the 9th, or that's the 6th, I think. Hold on. The 7th, sorry. And notice too that as planets enter Aries, they're going to conjoin Saturn and Neptune. So Saturn is separating. It's not that far away from Neptune. It's very much still in the engagement range of that conjunction with Saturn and Neptune. However, the point I want to make right now is those planets are being activated with every planet that's coming into Aries, starting here with Venus. So I wouldn't be surprised if the weekend of, the first weekend of March, next weekend, is a little characterized by conflict. Like there might be some conflict happening here. And it could very well be productive, though. I think any transit can be productive. It really depends on how you show up for it. And that's why we listen to these forecasts, you know? With the Mercury Cazimi, that is giving me more hope for a productive dialogue, because it's like something has come to light while Venus is conjoining Neptune and then Saturn. So I just wonder if there's something getting worked out, maybe about what we need or what we really truly value in our lives, and definitely in the area of life indicated by Aries in your chart. So for me, for example, as a Libra rising, that's my 7th house. So maybe there's some kind of clarity coming through around what I need in relationships, because that is a 7th house topic. So trying to be a little more intentional moving into this week, I would suggest thinking about what is no longer aligned on a values level, and that may not become clear to you until the end of the week. I would say until you get to the end of the week, just try to really cultivate some space. Try to stay open. Don't overbook yourself. The full moon eclipse is coming. Let's chill a little bit. And then over the weekend, don't be afraid to speak up for yourself. Keep in mind when you might be pushing a little too hard, right? Try not to forget the other person involved in the dynamic that you're working through, but don't be afraid to self-advocate. Okay, yeah. Now, the last thing I'll say about the first 9 days is this Mercury trine Jupiter. Mercury is going to trine Jupiter 3 times. It's already happened once in February. This is the second time, and there will be a third and final time due to Mercury's retrograde. I talked a lot about this particular dynamic. This is actually pretty important in the Mercury retrograde cycle. And Whitney Krantz of Astro Arcana Astrology and I did a bonus episode on Nightlight Astrology's YouTube channel all about this Mercury retrograde, and I talked a lot about this particular transit. So I recommend you go watch that. I don't want to go too deep into this because I think for our purposes, this eclipse is the biggest deal of these first 9 days. So with that, I want to go ahead and put the chart on the screen. So let me get that situated for us. I'm going to hide that and open this. And how big am I going to make it? Hey, that's good. Okay. We're getting the hang of this, guys. Okay. I'll just share while I'm setting this up. One of the things that came through for me in my Sunday tarot reading that I do for myself every Sunday to kind of set my oh, that's way too big. Stand by. I'll fix that. One of the things that came through for me was to relax a little bit more. That you can be the input and not just the source, meaning you don't have to always be the one, like you don't always have to make everything happen. You don't always have to go out there and hustle or be the like proverbial magician. You can actually sit back and receive and still be productive, quote unquote. Like that is actually very productive. And I think given this eclipse that we're about to talk about, that is even more true, because here we go. It's even more true than normal because we're talking about an eclipse in Virgo, a sign of digestion that wants to process things. So I think it's really important for us to make time for that in and around this eclipse, really from now till the 5th, I would say. The 5th, you might be feeling a little more energized because we have that sun trine Jupiter. But let's take a look at this eclipse. It's crazy, dude. So we have Jupiter really slowly at its exaltation degree here. helping out all these planets in Pisces is what I want to say, which I do think it helps. I think it's a huge benefit that Jupiter is doing that, but also we can't ignore what's going on with the moon. The moon is ruled by Mercury in detriment in fall and retrograde. The moon is at the south node. That's further reinforcing that this is a release moment. And it's a full moon, also indicating that it's a moment of release. And so I think if I could kind of bundle up what we're being called to do here, I talked in that bonus video on Nightlight regarding the Mercury retrograde about how I think this Mercury retrograde is about grieving and processing emotions. And I think that this eclipse happening, where it's happening in Virgo, ruled by this Mercury retrograde, is just like a flashpoint in that cycle. We are really releasing something right now. And the nature of what you're releasing is going to be indicated by the house topics that are activated for you by this eclipse. So what house does Virgo occupy in your chart? There's some kind of release around that. So again, like just as an example, I'm a Libra rising, Virgo is my 12th house. So I could, if I was giving myself a reading, I would say there's a release around those limiting beliefs, those like subconscious patterns that have maybe held you back. And if we take it to a more traditional astrological point of view, where we don't necessarily think about things in terms of psychology, but external circumstances, this might be a time where you're like spending some time alone. You're kind of going into your own mind. The 12th house is very internal, regardless of whether we're looking at a more psychological or traditional approach. If we were looking at your, let's say, third house, like if this eclipse were happening in your third house, I would say there might be some kind of release with siblings. There might be something you're letting go of around dynamics with siblings or old pain, old stories. This is a Mercury ruled sign. We're processing, we're digesting. So I think that that's the major story of this eclipse. I don't think there's anything else I want to show with the chart here. I'm gonna kind of rearrange my life real quick and pop over to the chat and see if anybody has any questions before I continue. Okay, I'm not seeing anything, but I know I'm lagging, so keep me posted. I'll keep looking at the chat and see if there's anything that I need to address, okay? For the time being, I think what I want to do is move on to the next 10 days, okay? So we said the first 10 days we're really still feeling out and not dealing with, because I don't want to make it sound super negative, but the ramifications, the energy of February is still very much in play. And so that's the first 10 days is more of that processing, more of that recognizing what needs to be released and allowing for that to happen. I'm gonna take a sip of my tea really quick. The mid-March chapter of this story, March 13th through 18th, it's a little less busy, but it is like some intensity building and then a release. So a couple of things I want to point out. On the 13th, Mars is going to conjoin the North Node in Pisces. This is my birthday. Last year I had an eclipse on my birthday, so I'll take this. But as far as this transit goes, the North Node is a insatiable appetite. It wants more and more and more. And so we can be really combative around this time. We might be very defensive. We might have a lot to, we might be easily provoked. I think that's a good way to think about it. I don't know what I'm doing with this mic. Easily provoked, aggressive, very in our feelings, and very ready to defend. And that can go, like, that can be good or bad. I don't think that's inherently good or bad, but I know the North Node has an edginess to it that can kind of take us to extremes pretty easily. This could also be a surge of ambition because Mars really wants to win. It can be very competitive. So I think on one hand, this is powerful energy for aligned action, but on the other, we want to be aware of reactivity and any kind of like winning at all costs impulses that might be coming up around this time. A good question for this is this battle actually mine? Like, do I need to involve myself in this? I'm reminded of a fight I got in as a 12-year-old at a carnival. It's like the most Hoosier thing on the planet. Because someone called my friend a slut and I felt like I had to defend her honor. I didn't need to get involved in that. You know what I mean? Like, that was not my fight. And I want you to ask those same questions. Like, is this my fight? And if it is, get in there, go for it. But if it's not, maybe stay out of it this time around anyway. And definitely watch for any kind of reactivity around fear too. Now I'm bringing up fear just because I think defensiveness is rooted in fear, and I see Mars's negative traits as, one of them can be defensiveness. So be aware of where you're being provoked and where you're feeling reactive, because we probably want to slow our roll a little bit. Then Mercury is going to conjoin Mars. Mercury is still retrograde, as you can see. Another potentially heated communication. I hate to say there's a couple of these going on right now, but again, I want us to try to keep an open mind about that, because I know for me, if I were you sitting here listening to this, I would be like, I'm not looking forward to March. Like, I don't want to get in fights. I don't want to argue with people. And I totally get that. But what if we could look at it not as a binary, it's good or it's bad, which I know is hard to do, but what if we could instead say, maybe these are productive disagreements, productive struggles where, yeah, maybe we're not on the same page, but the conversation itself helps us get a little bit closer. And because we're talking about this Mercury in Pisces, we're talking about it's still in retrograde. I think there's, again, something that's getting worked out, something that's getting processed, something that we are better able to understand and give language to through the process of this messy dialogue that could feel a little confronting. And we might be the ones doing the confronting. And so just be ready for that possibility, I guess, that there could be a bit of a confrontation, there could be a bit of a disagreement, but on the other side of that, there's language for your experience that you would have never had it not been for that discussion. And I would say probably a deeper understanding of other people's perspectives, which is always something that can benefit everybody. And then March 18th, I'm excited for this mostly. We're going to look at this one on the chart here in a hot second. We have a new moon in Pisces. I'm excited because it's not an eclipse. It's not an eclipse in Pisces. Yay, just a beautiful new moon ruled by an exalted Jupiter at Jupiter's exaltation degree. This feels like the exhale after all the intensity of February and this first little bit of March that we've been talking about. It feels like a reset to me. With Jupiter being the ruler, that just feels very healing, very soothing, very like, okay, I see what this all means now. It's a moment of integration where we can take all of the, what may have felt chaotic moments of the past month and a half and make sense of it. And it comes at the perfect time just before the equinox. So that's a big deal too. We're obviously going to talk about the equinox, so stand by on that. Pisces is a zodiac sign that is like the primordial soup. It's the oneness and the unity that you feel, the image I always go to is like a baby in the womb where there is no separation between you and source. And it feels so good to be connected like that. There is no separation. There is no division. In fact, there is no good and bad. It's all just oneness. So it's a liminal space. It's a space of dreams and spiritual connections. And it can help us get more in touch with that spiritual part of ourselves. Because we are material beings, we are humans on this material plane, but we are also spirits having a human experience. And the Pisces experience is to get closer to the spirit. So I'm excited for us to get to experience that. I think the invitation for this new moon is to get quiet. As you know, I would say that for pretty much every new moon, it's a time of inner reflection, but to feel into what you actually want. And by that I mean tune into your body, number one, and number two, use that connection to your body to tune more deeply into your emotions. What excites you on a visceral level? Feel into it, because this new moon could help you understand what you want on a level that we don't regularly give ourselves access to, because we live in a materialist world. We live in a world that values cold hard facts, quote unquote, that things we can prove with like a scientific method, which I'm definitely not shitting on, but I am saying that our societal outlook tends to diminish the felt experience, the inner world, what we can only know through intuition and imagination, really. So what I'm saying is, if you take a moment to get quiet and feel into what you want instead of thinking about what you want, you might be really surprised with the clarity that comes through, and it might give you a really strong idea about what you want to make manifest as we move into the light half of the year. Let's go ahead and put this on the screen. I'm gonna hide this, bring this. Okay, I'm getting good at this, I think. Getting a little better at it, and my voice isn't totally dying, so I think we're doing okay. All right, so here we are. 28 degrees 27 arc minutes of Pisces is where this new moon is happening. Jupiter, again, direct. Hey, Jupiter's direct, but only recently, and as I said, at its exaltation degree. Now, there are a couple things with this. The first is Venus is squaring Jupiter, and Venus is in the overcoming position. So Venus is, it's tricky because Jupiter is strong as fuck in Cancer. But if we're thinking about who has the upper hand in this dynamic, it's Venus. And so there may be some interpersonal stuff to work out here. You might need to have that self-advocacy around this time. And it could also be that you're feeling a little locked in by your obligations. This Venus wants independence. And the square to Jupiter is giving me like, there's some kind of responsibility. There's something you're beholden to that like you really need to like be present for here. Especially given we're talking about a Jupiter in Cancer, because this is a caretaker, a house mother, someone who is making sure everyone is taken care of. And this Venus is like, fuck that. I don't want to do that. I want to do my own thing. So we may need to navigate some kind of dynamic like that around this time. But if we ignore that, if we just don't really think about that, and think about the fact that this exalted Jupiter is ruling this new moon, there's a lot of blessings here. Now check this out. Mercury is also moving out of its conjunction with the North Node. This has already happened once. Let's see. Let me get you a date on that so that you can compare notes. Because the nice thing about a retrograde is we can connect some dots really easily, because Mercury will have done this more than once. We can look at both dates and see what do they have in common and get some good insight there. So let me get you a date on this. February 12th. And it might be a little hard to distinguish because there was a lot going on around February 12th. It might be hard to know what was what. However, Now you can compare dates. March 17th technically is when the second time it'll happen is, but I think for all intents and purposes, we can think about March 18th as well. It's very much still in the mix there. And so, beautiful time for dreaming, beautiful time for connecting inward. Don't ditch your responsibilities too much. One other thing that's coming to me before we move on is your values might be changing. Venus can be indicative of values, and so can Jupiter. Jupiter's more so on a, like, how do I want to say this? Like a principles level. Like, what are your operating principles? What guides your decisions and your choices? And Venus is like, what do you value more so on a material level, but also relationally? So your values might be shifting a little bit, and that's totally fine. That's not inherently good or bad, but it's something to be paying attention to as we move into this moment. Okay, I'm going to put our calendar back on and check on the chat. Mars and Sag love standing up for honor, very Klingon. Look, I'm not a Star Trek person, Kyle, I'm sorry. But I take your word for it. I trust you. I'm going to take a sip of my tea, and we're going to move on to the final 10 days. The third chapter in our story here that we're developing. Okay, so part 3. Late March 20th through 30th. This is a turn, y'all. This is we are full speed ahead-ish. Because what's so fascinating to me, anyway, about this Mercury retrograde, among many things, is look what happens on the 20th. We have the spring equinox, the sun enters Aries, and Mercury stations direct. I just think that's very fascinating for, all right, we are ready to roll. We are ready to move forward. However, we know that when Mercury stations direct, it's still moving very slowly. So it's not exactly full speed ahead, but the fact that these two things happen on the same day is giving me, like, we know where we're going and we're getting started. Like, we are starting to pedal on the bike and we're picking up speed the more we do it, right? Feels like the fog lifts, the plans start moving. We're going to be in the post-retrograde shadow, so again, you don't need to rush anything. The sun moving into Aries is always a powerful moment of new beginnings. We know, because we talked about it already, that as planets enter Aries, they are going to conjoin Neptune and Saturn, activating those two powerful outer planets there. So there's some fogginess to navigate and maybe some challenges. I just got like an image of Bowser, like final boss energy is always what I think about with Saturn. You're at the final level and like, now you gotta fight Saturn. Or not Saturn. Well, yeah, Saturn, but Bowser. Any Mario people who played Mario when they were kids, you will know. If you know, you know. And if you don't, you can forget it. But the main thing is, as the sun and all the other planets move through those early degrees, we're gonna face a little test, a little challenge. I do think, though, just sticking with the 20th for a moment, if you've been waiting to start something, this is a good day to begin. And I don't mean do everything. I want to be really clear. Take the first step here. You probably are not going to know what that is or looks like for you until we get closer to this moment. But if around the 20th you're like, I think I'm ready to start, you should start. Don't wait. Like, let that energy of the equinox kind of get you moving and grooving. When we're thinking about the sun conjunct Neptune on the 22nd, this is spiritual illumination, first of all. The sun is exalted in Aries, so this is a good thing. I want to get into this discussion about how it's all relative. Like, what's good for you on a material level is not necessarily good for you spiritually. Because when I think about this, it could be like arrogance, honestly. It could be like delusions of grandeur. So it's not inherently a good thing, but I think it's ultimately useful energy. It could be spiritual illumination, kind of seeing beyond the surface, feeling connected to something bigger than yourself, feeling as if you're on some kind of spiritual or divine mission. Like things could feel really aligned around this time, which, I mean, yes. Like, I don't know about you, but that sounds great to me. I would say it's a good time to ask yourself, do I feel like I'm aligned with my spirit right now? Is this path aligned with me spiritually? Slash, what, like, reconnect to your vision. Spend some time sitting with your vision around this time, which is a good thing to do regardless for the equinox, but especially on this Sunday when the sun conjoins Neptune, I suggest spending some time with your vision board and asking yourself if it's aligned, not just on a material level, but on a spiritual level as well. And then a few days later, the sun conjoins Saturn on the 25th. This is where the vision meets structure. Who are you becoming? What are you committing to in order to get there? So it's not just challenges or obstacles. It can be a firming up, a shoring up. Hold on. I want to invite us to treat this transit as an invitation to be in integrity. You know, we talk about Saturn a lot as a builder, someone who can create the container. And I think that is a really productive way that this energy might show up. Because if we just spent some time really tuning into the vision, maybe by the time we get here, because that conjunction is going to be building on the 23rd and 24th, maybe by the time it perfects or around that time, we're like, okay, so here's what I need to do. Here are the material actions that need to take place in order for this vision to be manifest. In order for me to feel aligned on a spiritual level, here are the physical actions that need to take place. I need to wake up earlier. I need to create a space for meditation, whatever it is, you know. I think that we might get more clear on that around these first couple days of this week. And the sun sextile Neptune too, or Pluto, excuse me, I think is also giving us useful intel that we maybe wouldn't get otherwise, perhaps about why we haven't done the things that become clear here. Meaning maybe we become aware of the actions we need to take, and we realize we kind of knew all along that's what we needed to do. And the Pluto of it all is like, yeah, and here's why you were your own worst enemy and not doing this sooner. Here's why you waited so long. Here were the like unconscious obstacles that were in your way that the sun is now shining a light on in a way that like it's making them sort of melt in the daylight. Like that vampire imagery I used earlier. Okay, so that's the big news for those couple of days. We have Venus conjunct Chiron in Aries here on the 26th. Sorry, I'm gonna try to move along here because my throat is not cooperating. We know Chiron is the wounded healer. It's a beautiful teacher. It really shows us where we can grow and where we maybe need to heal and what we can offer others from our own healing process, where we can show other people what we've learned and help them on their journey too. So this is giving wounds around connection, maybe self-worth, maybe desire. We know Venus is in detriment in Aries, so this is something that came to mind for me is like tension around waiting for things, or I'm sorry, wanting things for yourself. Because we know that Venus in Aries is focused on the self and getting what it wants. And that's not inherently bad. But there may be a frustration around having to share, I guess, is a way of thinking about it, because Venus in Aries does not want to share. Like, I think that's a really good way of thinking about Venus in Aries. It is thinking about me first and foremost, and if it's not good for me, then I'm not doing it. So we may be shown around this time where that unwillingness to share or even like consider sharing, where we're maybe being a little selfish, or that may come up in our lives in another way. You know, again, think about the house topics activated by Aries in your chart. For me, this is my seventh house. So it may be like me kind of being selfish in relationships. It might be something with my partner or my friend or what have you. It may not be happening just for me, in other words. It might be presenting externally, and then I then end up reflecting on my needs in my relationship and the way in which I maybe am not giving as much as I'm taking, right? So that's Venus conjunct Chiron in Aries. And I would say too, like, good advice for this, stop apologizing for what you want. I know I just said you might be confronted with where you're selfish, but it may also be that you realize you've kind of settled a lot, and this might be a flashpoint of like, you know what, I'm not gonna fucking settle. This is what I want. And it could come out really aggressively, because when you don't share that for any amount of time, when you repress that, it turns into resentment. And so this moment might kind of bring that out in a way that's a little confrontational, a little aggressive, but is ultimately, if you can be with it and if you can be honest about it. So if you can recognize what it is, that, oh, actually, this is my resentment bubbling to the surface, and acknowledge that, then you can actually have a very productive healing experience, not just for you, but in your partnerships too. So stay open and stay aware around this time. Okay. And then the last thing I want to talk about, we made it to the end, guys. Venus enters Taurus. Venus enters Taurus on the 30th, and this is great. You know, Venus being in detriment in Aries to being in her home sign, one of her two home signs, Taurus, very embodied, very grounded, very sensual. There's a sense of felt peace that I experience when I think about this transit, when I think about Venus being in Taurus. And I think it's another big shift out of that real fiery energy that we've been feeling since Saturn and Neptune moved into Aries. They're still going to be there, but Venus being out of there, I think, is a big help in terms of bringing the boil down to a simmer. Because it does feel very intense right now. I don't know about you. For me, it feels very intense right now. And if I had to like kind of go back and summarize the emotional arc, if you will, or the intensity arc might be a better way of saying that. We're kind of at a peak right now on March 1st. Like, we're still in eclipse season. We're still in, and in fact, hold on, I'm going to hide all this as I finish talking about this. We don't need that. And I'm going to make myself a little bigger. Yeah, so we're, as of March 1st, we're still kind of high up on the intensity scale because we're still in eclipse season. We're still in this Mercury retrograde. It kind of stays pretty consistently where it is. It may even go up just a smidge with that Mars action in the middle of the month, with Mars conjoining the North Node, Mars conjoining Mercury retrograde. And then once we get to the solstice, or excuse me, the equinox on the 20th, the same day Mercury stations direct, things are kind of gelling a little bit. They're kind of making a little more sense. It's almost like, you know, if our lives are a puzzle, eclipse season along with Saturn and Neptune into Aries kind of went with all the puzzle pieces. And so we've been kind of putting them back together. And by the time we get to the equinox with Mercury direct, the picture is starting to kind of come back together. And really, I would even say 2 days prior with that new moon in Pisces. That is very cohering as well. We start to see the picture once again. The thing is, the picture will probably have changed a little bit. The picture is a little different by this point. But that's okay. We can see that now. We understand what's changed, what's different, and we are recalibrating to the new values that we want to take with us into this next chapter, starting at the equinox, starting with this new moon. So it's an exciting time. It's a time of integration. It's a time of processing and release. And it's a time of choosing what truly matters to you, which I think if we were to zoom out on a larger scale, to think about these really big picture transits like the Saturn-Neptune conjunction in Aries, it is ultimately for me about recalibration. It's about understanding the structures that no longer work, Saturn and Aries, allowing them to dissolve, Neptune and Aries. And in doing that, you create space for something new to come through. So I think that's the invitation for us. I'm going to look back. Resentment is a feeling I've been really learning to understand. Yeah. It's not a fun one, right? Like it's obviously it's not fun, but it is so useful to work with because it's such a shadow feeling. You know, nobody wants to feel resentment. I anyway, in my own inner world, like that's something that I really instinctively push away. But if you can have the presence to feel into it, there's so much rich information you can get from your resentment. I think I have a video about that. I should look into that. Okay, I'm gonna close out here with just some final takeaways and then maybe hang out because I know I'm on a bit of a lag. A single sentence for the month. February broke something open, and March asks you to decide what you're going to build and from what you're going to build. Are you going to build out of fear? That's Saturn too. Or truth? What is your truth? Are you willing to be honest enough to say, here's what's not working anymore? I'm willing to let go of this. Because the old structures aren't coming back. That's what this astrology, the pivotal astrology of February has told us. Like, the old way is done. It's not coming back. So now you can consciously choose what to do next. And that's not a tragedy. You know, I think when we think about something dying or something falling away, it sounds sad. But I want to offer that it's actually an opening and it's natural and necessary. And if we can recognize that, then we have a lot of power to shape the future in this moment just by being present. So I would offer to stop rebuilding the same structures out of sheer habit and to stop deferring or waiting for permission, to stop building a life that looks good to everyone else while you are starving on a soul level, and instead build the real thing. Build what feels real and true to you. Have the presence to tune into that. That's what this Mercury Retrograde is helping us do. Feel into it, and you will find the language and the images for what you're looking for. And then by the last third of the month, you have the clarity you need to start taking steps in that direction. Okay, that's what I have for you guys. Okay, I went a lot longer than I meant to. Damn. And it looks like I'm super behind in terms of this lag. I'm going to get the technology figured out, guys. I'm not really sure why it's so far behind. Oh, there's Kyle. Okay, cool. So maybe I'm not that far behind. Okay, maybe I'm not, and it's just lagging on my end. You're so welcome, Kyle. Thank you for being here. And for anybody listening later, thank you for being here. Subscribe if you haven't already. And please drop any questions you have about this month's astrology in the comments. I will be checking on them and answering them as they come in. Okay. See you later. Have a good March.